Marcus Chen had always believed that the universe held secrets beyond human imagination, but nothing had prepared him for what he found in the abandoned Zelthari research station orbiting the dead world of Keth 9. The distress beacon had been broadcasting for over 3 centuries, yet no one had bothered to investigate. Most spacers avoided Zelthari ruins. Their technology was notoriously dangerous, and their experiments had a habit of going wrong in spectacular ways. But Marcus wasn't most spacers. As a human engineer working for the Galactic Salvage Consortium, he specialized in recovering lost technology from dead civilizations. His reputation for solving impossible problems had earned him respect across the galaxy, though many aliens still viewed humans as reckless newcomers who didn't understand the dangers they courted. The station's outer hull bore the scars of some ancient battle. Massive tears in the metal suggested weapons fire, while entire sections had been torn away as if by enormous claws. Marcus's small salvage ship, the Persistence, docked with one of the few intact airlocks. The station's artificial gravity was still functional, though the lights flickered weakly as he made his way through the corridors. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and Marcus's footsteps echoed in the silence. His suit's scanner detected no immediate threats, but he kept his plasma cutter ready. Zelthari stations were known for their automated defenses, and he'd learned from experience that 300-year-old security systems could be unpredictably lethal. The first few levels yielded little of interest: standard research labs, living quarters, and storage areas. But as Marcus descended deeper into the station, the architecture began to change. The corridors grew wider, the ceilings higher, and strange symbols appeared on the walls. These weren't Zelthari markings. They were something much older. It was on the 7th level that Marcus heard it, a sound that made his blood run cold. It was breathing, slow and deep, coming from somewhere ahead. His scanner showed no life signs, but that didn't mean much when dealing with alien technology. Some creatures could mask their biological signatures. Following the sound, Marcus found himself in a vast chamber that stretched beyond the reach of his lights. The air was thick with an energy that made his skin tingle, and the walls hummed with barely contained power. At the center of the chamber stood something that defied explanation: a crystalline prison, roughly cylindrical in shape and easily 50 feet tall. Inside the crystal, Marcus could see movement. Something huge shifted within the transparent walls, and those deep, rhythmic breaths continued to echo through the chamber. As he approached, his lights finally illuminated the prisoner fully, and Marcus felt his knees nearly give out. It was a dragon. Not the mythical creatures from Earth's ancient stories, but something far more magnificent and terrifying. The beast was easily 40 feet long, with scales that shifted between deep purple and midnight black. Its wings were folded against its body, but Marcus could see they would span the entire width of the crystal prison when extended. The creature's head was massive, with intelligent eyes that seemed to glow with their own inner light. Those eyes were open, and they were looking directly at him. Marcus stood frozen for a long moment, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Dragons were supposed to be extinct, had been extinct for over 1,000,000 years, according to galactic historians. They were among the first sentient species to achieve interstellar travel, but they had vanished from the galaxy long before humans had even discovered fire. The dragon's head moved slightly, and Marcus realized it was trying to speak. No sound emerged from the crystal prison, but the creature's lips were moving in what appeared to be speech patterns. Marcus activated his suit's universal translator, but it couldn't penetrate the crystal barrier. Moving closer, Marcus examined the prison more carefully. The crystal wasn't natural. It was some kind of containment field, held together by a complex network of energy conduits and control systems. The technology was clearly Zelthari, but it had been modified extensively. Someone had spent considerable time and effort ensuring this dragon remained trapped. As Marcus circled the prison, he noticed something that made his engineer's instincts flare with excitement. The power systems were failing. After 3 centuries of constant operation, the energy conduits were beginning to deteriorate. Hairline cracks had appeared in several of the crystal faces, and the control systems showed clear signs of degradation. The dragon was slowly dying. Marcus spent the next several hours studying the prison's design. The Zelthari had been brilliant engineers, but they had built this system for temporary containment, not centuries of operation. The power source, a controlled fusion reactor buried deep within the station, was running out of fuel. Within a few more decades, maybe sooner, the containment field would collapse entirely. But that collapse wouldn't free the dragon. According to Marcus's analysis, the sudden loss of containment would cause the crystalline structure to implode, crushing the creature inside. The Zelthari had designed this as a death trap, ensuring that even if their prisoners' bonds failed, it would not survive to seek revenge. Marcus found himself faced with an impossible decision. Every regulation, every law of the Galactic Confederation forbade the release of contained alien entities. Dragons, in particular, were classified as an extinct species of unknown capability. For all Marcus knew, this creature could be imprisoned for good reason. Perhaps it was dangerous, violent, or diseased. But as he looked into those intelligent eyes, Marcus saw something that transcended species barriers. He saw desperation, but also dignity. He saw a being that had maintained its sanity through 3 centuries of imprisonment, a creature that had never stopped hoping for freedom. Marcus thought about the human concept of justice, about the stories his grandmother had told him of dragons in Earth's mythology, creatures of wisdom and power, often misunderstood but rarely evil. He thought about what it meant to be human, about the drive to help others that seemed hardwired into his species' DNA. The decision, when it came, felt inevitable. Marcus began his work immediately. He couldn't simply shut down the containment field. That would trigger the implosion protocol. Instead, he needed to carefully modify the system, redirecting power flows and bypassing safety mechanisms. It was delicate work, requiring all of his skill and experience. The dragon watched him work, those ancient eyes following every movement. Occasionally, Marcus thought he saw approval in the creature's gaze, as if it understood what he was trying to do. The work took nearly 2 full days, with Marcus taking only brief breaks for food and rest. As he worked, Marcus found himself wondering about the dragon's story. How had it ended up here? What had it done to earn the Zelthari's wrath? The research station's computers had been wiped clean, but Marcus had found fragments of data suggesting this had been more than a simple prison. It had been a research facility, with the dragon as an unwilling test subject. The thought made Marcus work even harder. Finally, after 48 hours of careful modifications, Marcus was ready. He had rerouted the power systems to create a controlled shutdown sequence that would gradually weaken the containment field without triggering the implosion protocol. The process would take several hours, but it would work. Marcus activated the sequence and stepped back. The change was immediate. The crystal walls began to dim, and the humming of the energy field dropped to a lower pitch. The dragon's eyes widened, and for the first time, Marcus saw something like hope in those ancient features. As the containment field continued to weaken, Marcus prepared for what might come next. He had no idea how the dragon would react to freedom, or whether it would even survive the release process. All he could do was wait and hope that he had made the right choice. The crystal walls grew dimmer, and hairline cracks began to appear across their surface. The dragon stirred, testing its bonds for the first time in centuries. Marcus held his breath as the containment field entered its final phase. In less than an hour, one way or another, this would all be over. The crystal walls shattered like glass. Marcus threw himself behind a bank of monitoring equipment as massive shards rained down across the chamber floor. The sound was deafening. 3 centuries of crystalline containment exploding outward in a cascade of glittering fragments. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout the station as the sudden power drain triggered safety protocols. When the chaos finally settled, Marcus cautiously raised his head above his makeshift shelter. The prison was gone, leaving only a twisted framework of metal supports and scattered debris. At the center of the destruction, the dragon lay motionless on the chamber floor. For a terrifying moment, Marcus thought he had killed the creature. 300 years of imprisonment might have left the dragon too weak to survive freedom. But then he saw the slow rise and fall of the massive chest, heard the deep, rumbling breaths that no crystal barrier could contain. The dragon was alive. Slowly, carefully, the ancient creature raised its great head. Its eyes opened, and Marcus found himself staring into depths that seemed to hold the wisdom of millennia. The dragon's gaze swept the chamber, taking in the destruction of its prison, before finally settling on the human engineer who had made it possible. For a long moment, neither moved. Marcus felt the weight of that ancient stare, wondering if he had just made the greatest mistake of his life. The dragon was even more magnificent free than it had been in captivity. Its scales rippled with colors that shifted like oil on water, and an aura of barely contained power seemed to radiate from its massive form. Then the dragon spoke, and Marcus felt his translator struggle to process words in a language older than human civilization. Human. The voice was like distant thunder, deep and resonant. You have freed me from my torment. Why? Marcus swallowed hard, his mouth suddenly dry. Because it was the right thing to do, he managed. No sentient being should suffer like that. The dragon's massive head tilted slightly, a gesture that somehow conveyed both curiosity and respect. The right thing, it repeated as if tasting the words. Your species is young, yet you speak of concepts that many ancient races have forgotten. What are you called, little engineer? Marcus Chen, he replied, somehow finding his voice. I'm a salvage engineer with the Galactic Consortium. Marcus Chen. The dragon pronounced each syllable with careful precision. I am Draconius Vex Thaler, last of the stellar dragons, keeper of the void flames, and guardian of the lost paths. You have done me a service that can never be forgotten. The titles were impressive, but Marcus was more concerned with immediate practicalities. Are you hurt? The containment field may have caused damage during your imprisonment. Draconius attempted to rise, and Marcus saw the toll that 3 centuries had taken. The dragon's movements were stiff, pained, and several of its scales had dulled to an unhealthy gray. When Draconius tried to extend his wings, he managed only a partial spread before exhaustion forced him to fold them back. I am diminished, Draconius admitted, and Marcus heard the shame in that thunderous voice. The Zelthari's prison was designed not merely to contain, but to drain. They fed upon my essence, using it to power their experiments. I am but a shadow of what I once was. Marcus felt a surge of anger at the long-dead researchers. The Zelthari were conducting experiments on you? What kind of experiments? They sought to understand the source of our power, Draconius explained, settling back onto the chamber floor. My people could manipulate matter and energy in ways that other species considered impossible. The Zelthari captured me to discover our secrets, to add our abilities to their own. But they're extinct, Marcus said. The Zelthari have been gone for over 2 centuries. What happened to them? Draconius's eyes gleamed with something that might have been satisfaction. They overreached. Their experiments with energies beyond their comprehension led to their downfall. Their homeworld burned, and their empire crumbled to dust. But their prison remained, and I remained within it. As they spoke, Marcus was already analyzing the situation. Draconius was clearly in poor condition, but dragons were notoriously resilient. With time and proper care, the ancient creature might recover much of his strength. The question was where such recovery could take place. "The station isn't safe for extended occupation," Marcus said. "The power systems are failing, and there's no food or medical facilities suitable for your species. We need to get you somewhere you can recover properly." "And where would you suggest, young engineer? The galaxy believes my people extinct. There are no sanctuaries for creatures such as I." Marcus thought for a moment, then smiled. "Actually, there might be. Humanity has a concept called asylum, protection for those who seek refuge, and I know just the place." Marcus explained his plan as he helped Draconius make his way to the station's docking bay. The journey was slow and difficult. The dragon's weakened state made movement painful, and the station's corridors had never been designed for creatures of his size. But Draconius persevered, determined to taste true freedom after so many centuries. "Terra Nova," Marcus explained as they walked. "It's a human colony world on the edge of Confederation space. Officially, it's a research station studying extinct alien cultures. Unofficially, it's where we keep things that don't fit standard galactic classifications." "You would harbor a creature that others might consider dangerous?" Draconius asked. "Humans have a saying," Marcus replied. "Judge by actions, not appearance. You've had every opportunity to hurt me since your release. But you haven't. That tells me more about your character than any species classification." The trip to Marcus's ship presented new challenges. The Persistence was a small vessel, designed for a single human occupant. There was no way Draconius would fit in the crew compartments, but Marcus had an idea. "The cargo hold," he suggested. "It's not luxurious, but it's large enough, and I can modify the life support systems to accommodate your physiology." Draconius examined the ship with interest. "Your technology is primitive, but elegant," he observed. "There is a simplicity to human engineering that I find appealing." Marcus spent several hours modifying the cargo hold, installing additional atmospheric processors, and adjusting the gravity settings to make Draconius more comfortable. The dragon watched with fascination as Marcus worked, occasionally offering suggestions based on his ancient knowledge of engineering principles. "Your species has great potential," Draconius said as Marcus finished the modifications. "You approach problems with creativity rather than rigid adherence to established methods. It is a rare trait among the younger races." As the Persistence prepared to depart the station, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He was taking an enormous risk, harboring a supposedly extinct creature without proper authorization. If the Confederation discovered what he was doing, he could face serious charges. But looking at Draconius, seeing the gratitude and dignity in those ancient eyes, Marcus knew he was making the right choice. Sometimes doing the right thing required breaking a few rules. The journey to Terra Nova would take 3 weeks through hyperspace. As the station fell away behind them, Draconius settled into his makeshift quarters with something approaching contentment. "I have not known kindness for so long," the dragon said quietly. "Your species may be young, but you possess something that many ancient races have lost. Compassion for those different from yourselves." Marcus checked the ship's navigation systems one final time before settling in for the long journey ahead. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about dragons," he said. "In human mythology, they were often misunderstood creatures, feared for their power but noble at heart." "Perhaps your grandmother was wiser than she knew," Draconius replied. "And perhaps there is hope for this galaxy yet." As the Persistence entered hyperspace, carrying its unlikely passenger toward an uncertain future, neither Marcus nor Draconius could have imagined the events that would soon unfold. The dragon's rescue was only the beginning of a story that would reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. In the depths of space, ancient debts and new alliances were about to change everything. 6 months after arriving on Terra Nova, Draconius had made a remarkable recovery. The human colony world proved to be exactly what the ancient dragon needed, a peaceful environment where he could heal both body and spirit without fear of persecution or exploitation. Marcus had been right about Terra Nova's unofficial purpose. The colony's director, Dr. Sarah Okafor, specialized in what she diplomatically called xenological rehabilitation. Her facility had housed everyone from displaced refugees to creatures that didn't fit standard galactic classifications. A recovering dragon, while unusual, was not entirely unprecedented. Under Dr. Okafor's care and with access to Terra Nova's advanced medical facilities, Draconius had regained much of his strength. His scales had returned to their former luster, shifting between deep purples and midnight blues like a living aurora. His wings, once barely functional, could now carry him across the colony's vast territories. Most importantly, the ancient power that the Zelthari had drained from him was slowly returning. Marcus visited regularly, and their friendship had deepened considerably. Draconius proved to be a fascinating conversationalist, with knowledge spanning millions of years of galactic history. The dragon shared stories of civilizations that had risen and fallen long before humans had discovered agriculture, while Marcus told tales of human exploration and the drive that had carried his species to the stars in record time. "Your people remind me of my own in their youth," Draconius said one evening as they watched Terra Nova's twin suns set over the colony's research gardens. That same fierce curiosity, that unwillingness to accept limitations, it is a rare gift. Their peaceful existence was shattered when the hegemony arrived. The Khazari hegemony was one of the galaxy's most aggressive expansionist powers, a militant confederation that viewed other species as either subjects or obstacles to be removed. Their massive battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace without warning, surrounding Terra Nova with enough firepower to reduce the planet to rubble. The lead ship, a dreadnought-class vessel called the Iron Talon, transmitted surrender demands within minutes of arrival. The message was delivered by Admiral Vex Koth, a scarred Khazari warrior whose reputation for brutality was known throughout the galaxy. "Human colony," the Admiral's harsh voice echoed through Terra Nova's communication systems. "You harbor illegal technologies and unauthorized alien specimens. Surrender immediately, and we may allow some of your population to survive as laborers." Dr. Okafor's face was pale as she turned to Marcus. "How did they find out about our operations? Terra Nova is classified, protected by Confederation treaties." Marcus felt sick to his stomach. "They must have intercepted communications about Draconius. A living dragon would be an incredible prize for someone like the hegemony." The situation grew worse as Admiral Vex Koth's demands became specific. The hegemony had indeed learned about Draconius, and they wanted him alive. Dragons were legendary for their power, and the Khazari intended to use Draconius as a weapon to expand their empire. "You have 6 hours to deliver the dragon," Vex Koth declared. "Refuse, and we will take him from your ashes." The colony's defenses were minimal: a few orbital platforms and a small garrison of Confederation peacekeepers. Against the hegemony's battle fleet, they wouldn't last 10 minutes. Dr. Okafor immediately sent distress signals to the nearest Confederation bases, but help was days away. Marcus found Draconius in the colony's central garden, where the dragon often went to meditate. The ancient creature was studying the stars above, his massive form silhouetted against the night sky. "They've come for me," Draconius said without turning around. "I can sense their hatred from here, their hunger for power. The Khazari have not changed in the millennia since I last encountered them." "We won't let them take you," Marcus said firmly. "There has to be a way to—" "Marcus!" Draconius turned, and the human was startled to see something like amusement in those ancient eyes. "Do you truly believe that 6 months of recovery have returned me to full strength?" Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "What do you mean?" I mean that the Khazari have made a fundamental error in their calculations, Draconius replied, his voice carrying a rumble that seemed to resonate in Marcus's bones. They remember dragons as we were in our decline, weakened and scattered. They do not remember what we were at the height of our power. But the Zelthari drained so much from you. You said yourself that you were diminished. Diminished, yes, but not extinguished. Draconius spread his wings, and Marcus felt the air itself seem to thicken with barely contained energy. And in these months of peace, surrounded by the kindness of your people, I have remembered what it means to be Draconius Vex Thalar, keeper of the void flames. The dragon's eyes began to glow with an inner fire that Marcus had never seen before. The Khazari wish to claim me as a weapon? Very well. Let them learn why my people were once the undisputed masters of the void between stars. Marcus watched in awe as Draconius rose into the night sky, his form seeming to grow larger and more imposing with each beat of his massive wings. The dragon's scales began to shimmer with patterns of light that hurt to look at directly, and space itself seemed to bend around him. The hegemony fleet noticed the dragon's approach immediately. Admiral Vexkoth's voice crackled over the communication channels, filled with greed and anticipation. Excellent! The beast comes to us willingly. Prepare the containment nets. This prize will make the hegemony unstoppable. But as Draconius reached the edge of Terra Nova's atmosphere, something extraordinary happened. The dragon opened his mouth and spoke a single word in the ancient dragon tongue, a word that predated most galactic languages by millions of years. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. The hegemony ships, all 47 vessels in the massive fleet, simply ceased to exist. They didn't explode or disintegrate. They vanished, as if they had never been there at all. One moment the sky was filled with the angular shapes of Khazari warships, and the next there was only empty space and distant stars. Marcus, watching from Terra Nova's surface through the colony's telescopes, felt his knees go weak. The entire hegemony battle fleet, ships that could have conquered entire star systems, had been erased by a single word from an ancient dragon. Draconius descended slowly, landing in the garden with a grace that belied his massive size. His scales had returned to their normal coloration, and the terrifying energy that had surrounded him was gone. To all appearances, he was once again simply a recovering alien guest at a research colony. "What did you do to them?" Marcus asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I sent them elsewhere," Draconius replied calmly, "to a place between dimensions where they can contemplate the error of threatening those under my protection. They are not dead, merely displaced. Perhaps in a few thousand years, they will have learned better manners." Dr. Okafor arrived with a security team, her face pale with shock. "The Confederation is picking up massive energy readings from this location. What happened to the hegemony fleet?" "They decided to leave," Marcus said, looking at Draconius with new understanding. "Apparently they had urgent business elsewhere." In the days that followed, news of the hegemony fleet's mysterious disappearance spread throughout the galaxy. No trace of the ships was ever found, and Admiral Vex Koth's final transmission contained only incoherent babbling about the void and ancient fires. The incident had far-reaching consequences. The hegemony, faced with the total loss of their primary battle fleet, ceased their aggressive expansion and retreated to their core worlds. Other militant species, hearing whispers of what had happened at Terra Nova, began to reconsider their own imperial ambitions. Marcus continued his work as a salvage engineer, but now he carried the knowledge that he had earned the friendship and protection of one of the galaxy's most powerful beings. Draconius, for his part, remained on Terra Nova, serving as an unofficial guardian for Dr. Okafor's facility and the various beings who found refuge there. "You saved my life," Draconius said to Marcus one evening as they shared another sunset over the research gardens. In return, I have sworn to protect what you hold dear. It is the way of my people. Debts of honor are never forgotten. You don't owe me anything, Marcus replied. What I did, any decent person would have done. Precisely? Draconius smiled, an expression that looked strange but somehow fitting on his draconic features. And that, dear friend, is why humanity will surprise this galaxy in ways that none of us can yet imagine. Your species possesses something that raw power cannot provide, the simple desire to do what is right, regardless of personal cost. Marcus looked up at the stars, thinking about the future. Humanity was still young among the galactic community, still learning its place among ancient civilizations and powerful empires. But perhaps that youth was a strength, rather than a weakness. Perhaps the galaxy needed species that would choose compassion over conquest, friendship over dominion. The universe is vast, Draconius continued, and filled with wonders beyond counting. But the greatest wonder of all is the capacity for unexpected kindness. You gave me that gift, Marcus Chen, and through you, your entire species has earned the eternal friendship of the last stellar dragon. As the twin suns set behind Terra Nova's mountains, casting long shadows across the peaceful colony, neither Marcus nor Draconius spoke of the future. They didn't need to. The bond between human and dragon had been forged in the depths of an abandoned research station, strengthened by months of friendship, and proven in the fire of conflict. In a galaxy where power was often the only currency that mattered, they had discovered something far more valuable: the knowledge that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from what you can destroy, but from what you choose to protect. The debt had been repaid in full, but the friendship would last forever.